The budget smartphone market is seeing a revival of sorts this year, with quality devices landing in a price bracket that's within the reach of most first-time smartphone buyers. Yes, there are still many of them left, and all the companies are vying for their attention with carefully placed devices. Out of a lot of new ones announced, we have 4 of them here for comparison, all with a price tag of Rs 8,000 or below, which try to offer as much as they can for the price. These 4 phones that we will be comparing today are Motorola Moto E, Micromax Unite 2, Lava Iris X1 and the Xolo Q600s. This comparison isn't meant to put one phone ahead of the other, but is merely a guide to you, the buyer, to help make a better choice. So let's go ahead into the comparison then. As a part of the comparison, we will be checking out several different factors including the display, battery life, general performance, gaming and camera performance of these smartphones. First up, displays. Here is how the displays of all these smartphones stack up in terms of specifications. You can see here that Moto E is the sharpest in terms of pixel density, but is also the smallest comparatively and is the only one in the lot to have on-screen buttons. Unite 2 has the biggest display amongst the lot, but also has the least dense display with just a WVGA resolution screen and a pixel density less than 200 ppi. The Lava Iris X1 has a reasonable 218 ppi 4.5-inch WVGA display, while the Xolo Q600s is the second sharpest with a QHD display. In terms of brightness, the Q600s is the brightest, with the Unite 2 coming in the second, followed by the X1 and the Moto E in the least bright segment. The Q600s emerges as the strongest in terms of viewing angles, with the Unite 2 again coming in second. The Moto E's display does better in terms of viewing angles than the one on the Lava Iris X1, and color accuracy is maintained well in the Q600s, to some extent in the Unite 2. The displays of the Moto E and Iris X1 appear relatively cooler than usual. Overall, in terms of display quality, the Xolo Q600s is the clear winner and the Unite 2 comes in next. Between the Moto E and the Iris X1, if you are a fan of bigger display, then you would be picking the X1, as Moto E's screen estate is shrunk down by on-screen buttons. Now let's move on to general performance. In terms of general performance, the Snapdragon-powered Moto E is better than the other 3. The Unite 2 comes in next thanks to its quad-core MediaTek chip, and the Broadcom quad-core chip-powered X1 and Q600s take the last place. Both these phones are laggy, and that shows in their general user interface too. Opening the apps is much quicker on Moto E and Unite 2, while the Broadcom-powered X1 and Q600s severely fall behind in this aspect. Now moving on to the camera, here is a quick look at the specifications of the various camera units. In terms of quality, the 8MP Iris X1 does very well, while the Unite 2 and the Q600s come in next with good details and colors. The fixed focus 5MP unit on the Moto E is probably the worst performer in this range, and if the camera on a phone is very important to you, then you should reconsider when buying the Moto E. Now moving back to performance, let's see how these smartphones handle gaming. Among the 4 phones, Moto E takes the crown again, mainly because of its Adreno GPU, while the others are stuck with VideoCore or Mali GPU, which aren't quite capable. Most of the casual games were able to run fine on the Moto E, but just started lagging on the big ones like Shadowgun. The next best is the Unite 2, and that is because of the Mali 400 GPU. The VideoCore GPU powered Iris X1 and the Q600s performed less than the Moto E and the Unite 2. Both these phones could run these games, but that isn't their strongest suit. Now let's move on to the battery life, which is one of the very important factors to consider when buying a phone. The Motorola Moto E is the winner here again. The device has stripped down specifications from Moto G, but Motorola have kept almost all of the battery juice intact. Moto G had great battery life, but the Moto E does even better. The other phones aren't that good when compared to the Moto E, but all the 3 will last at least 1 day of normal usage, but the Moto E will definitely last a day and a half of normal usage. So concluding, in a bid to offer you maximum value for your money, each manufacturer has come up with a phone that does a few things well, but not so well on the other things. Moto E is an overall performer with good battery life, but has a poor camera and an average display, while the Unite 2 has a good display and a decent camera but doesn't look as good as the others and feels big and bulky. The Q600s seems to be a good blend of design, display and camera, but the software seems very laggy and the performance isn't the greatest. Same is the case with the Lava Iris X1, excellent design and camera but poor performance. It's clear that each phone has its positives and negatives, so to summarize better, here is a list of pros and cons of each and every phone that we have compared. So that's about it for the comparison, guys. Which do you think is the best budget smartphone out of this lot? Do let us know in the comment section below, and also do hit the like button if you like this video, and do hit the subscribe button if you want more videos like these. Thanks for watching, and let us know what you think in the comment section below.